سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. اللهم افتح علينا فتوح العارفين ووفقنا توفيق الصالحين الصادقين وعد علينا بعوائدك الحسنى يا أكرم الأكرمين. Before we continue on where we left off with, I just wanted to remind everyone where we were. The last thing that we mentioned was that Yusuf alayhi salam was wrongfully imprisoned and he was put into jail for an indefinite amount of time, meaning where most people have a specific amount of time where they're in prison 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 20 years. Yusuf was not given a time. He was left in jail indefinitely. And while he was in jail, he met two men, both of whom worked in the palace at one point, but were sent to jail temporarily. And both of them asked Yusuf to interpret dreams for them. For one, Yusuf interpreted and told him that you will one day be killed. And for the other one, he said, one day you will serve again in the king's castle and you will serve wine to the king and you will be from the close servants of the king. And that's exactly what happened. And Yusuf, he told the one that was going to serve the king that when you meet the king, tell the king about my situation, tell him about how I'm wrongfully imprisoned and how I have been unjustly put in this place. But obviously that person, he forgot because of shaitan. Now, moving on and going forward, one thing that I'd like to mention is that if a person was to open up all of the surahs of the Quran, they would not find any other surah besides Surah Yusuf that deals with dreams. Other surahs deal with dreams here and there. For example, the dream of Ibrahim when he sacrificed his son. But this surah has 3 or 4 dreams within of itself. This surah began with the dream of Yusuf alayhi salam, in which he told his father, "Inni ra'aytu ahada ashara kawkaba wash-shamsa wal-qamara ra'aytuhum li sajidin." Indeed, I see 11 stars and the sun and moon, and all of them are bowing down to me. And the dream of the 2 prisoners that he talked to, these 2 men. And now the third dream is the dream of the king of Egypt, or you could say the Pharaoh of Egypt. Why is it so important to mention that Yusuf alayhi salam surah is filled with dreams? It's because every prophet was given a miracle. Every prophet was given a skill, something that was out of the ordinary, something extraordinary. As for Musa alayhi salam, he was sent to a group of people that used to practice magic. And so Allah gave him a stick that could turn into a snake. Isa alayhi salam was sent to a group of people that were masters of medicine. And so Allah gave Isa alayhi salam the ability to cure the lepers and the blind and to bring back the dead. Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam was sent to a group of people that were good at language. They were good at poetry. And so Allah gave him the greatest miracle, the miracle of the Quran. Yusuf alayhi salam was sent to a group or a nation or a time where people loved for their dreams to be interpreted. And one of the signs of power and one of the signs of strength and one of the signs of status was that you were able to interpret dreams. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave Yusuf the ability to interpret dreams. وَيُعَلِّمُكَ مِن تَأْوِيلِ الْأَحَادِيثِ, that we have taught you the way to interpret dreams. And so now the third dream comes in the story. Yusuf's in prison. One of those friends of his got out of prison and he was killed. As for the other one, he's now pouring wine and is in the palace. And here's the king. The Quran, it says, وَقَالَ الْمَلِكِ. As for the king, he said the following to his people. إِنِّي أَرَى سَبْعَ بَقَرَاتٍ سِمَانٍ يَأْكُلُهُنَّ سَبْعٌ عِجَافٍ. That indeed I have seen in a dream 7 fat cows that are being eaten by 7 skinny cows. وَسَبْعُ سُنْبُلَاتٍ خُضْرٍ وَأُخَرُ يَابِسَاتٍ. And I see 7 what we call the ears of wheat, which is like the thing that wheat or corn is contained in. I see 7 of these types of vegetations that are green and filled are being eaten by 7 dry vegetations. And then, Ya ayyuhal mala, O people, O educated people, O the people that are in my cabinet, O the people that are in my palace, Aftuni fi ru'yai. Tell me what this dream means. Tell me what these seven skinny cows eating 7 fat cows, and these 7 dry pieces of vegetation eating 7 full green pieces of vegetation. What does this mean? In kuntum lirru'ya ta'burun, if you are able to interpret dreams. And so there's a few things to notice here. Number one is when you think of a scary movie and you think of something out of the extraordinary, you usually imagine the fat cows eating the skinny cows. But here's the opposite. It's the skinny cow eating the fat cow. And so it's something different. And then on top of it, you see dried vegetation eating, green vegetation, when it should be the opposite way, right? You usually put like hay and fertilizer on things that are already green, right? And so if you look at this thing, there's a few things mentioned. Number one, there's a baqara, a cow mentioned. Number two, there's the word sab'ah, which means 7. The word sumun, which means fat. The word hijaf, which means skinny. Sumbul, which is the ear of wheat or the ear of corn. Wal akhdur, which is greenery. Wal yabis, which is dry. These are 7 different points. In every single dream that a person has, there's what we call rumuz, or small signs in your dreams. And the people that interpret dreams, they look at these small parts of your story, these small characters, these small things, and they interpret your dreams based off of that. But generally, most dreams don't have this many particular items. And only a prophet is able to interpret such a complicated dream. And so, if Yusuf alayhi salam had not interpreted this dream, then perhaps the people of Egypt would have died of drought and hunger. But by the will of Allah, Allah gave Yusuf the ability to interpret this dream. And the word that the king used is ta'burun. Ta'burun, if you look at the translation, it means to interpret. But if you speak Arabic, you know the word abara ya'buru literally means to cross from one place to another. For example, abartul jisr, I crossed the bridge. I went from point A to point B. Why is the word for crossing and the word for interpreting a dream the same? It's because what you're doing is when somebody comes to you with a dream, you're taking them from their dream into reality. You're making what they saw something real. Min al-manami ila al-waqi'. And you're taking these different signs or the different parts of their dream, and you're going from the cow to the fat to the skinny to the different aspects of the dream, and you're slowly interpreting it and connecting it together. Now, like I said, only a prophet can interpret a dream this complicated. But who did the king ask? He asked the people in his castle. He asked the scholars of his castle. And so they only had one response. They said, Adghathu ahlam. That what you're seeing is a bunch of mixed up false dreams. It doesn't mean anything. They didn't have an answer for the king, so they just chalked it up to saying that whatever you saw is just, it's whatever, don't worry about it. وَمَا نَحْنُ بِتَأْوِيلِ الْأَحْلَامِ بِعَالِمِينَ. And we are not skilled in interpreting the type of dream that you had. Now there's a few things that we can gain from this ayah. They use the word adghath. Adghath, it comes from the word dightan, which is like bale, which is like a combination of grass and dead leaves and dead, it's like hay, you could say, right? So they're saying that whatever you're seeing is just a bunch of hay, right? It's a bunch of nonsense, right? And we can't interpret this type of dream. From this, we understand one thing, that there are dreams that regular dream interpreters, scholars, those that Allah has gifted that can interpret, and there are dreams that only prophets are able to interpret and only prophets are able to answer. And so these people, they said, we can't do it. We don't know how to interpret your dream. And now, while all of this is going on, the man that left prison, the one that was told by Yusuf that one day you'll fill wine for the king of Egypt, he's sitting there and he's watching all of this. And the Quran, it says, وَقَالَ الَّذِي نَجَى مِنْهُمَا, that as for the one that was saved and was not killed, وَادَّكَرَ over here means وَتَذَكَّرَ or وَذَكَرَ, that one, he remembered Yusuf. He remembered that there used to be a righteous man that was in the prison that helped me understand my dream. بعد أمة يعني بعد فترة أو بعد مدة, that he remembered that there used to be a young man by the name of Yusuf in the prison that knows how to interpret dreams. And so what does he say to the king? أنا أنبئكم, I will tell you what the dream is. بتأويله, I'll give you the interpretation. فأرسلون, but you have to do one thing, you have to send me to the prison, because that's where you're going to get your interpretation. Now, by what does he mean by send me to the prison? The reality is that who placed Yusuf in the prison? It was the minister, the prime minister, right? It was somebody of power. And so this guy that's just filling wine, he can't just go to the prison and be like, I want to talk to Yusuf. He has to get special permission. And so he says to the king, Arsilun, that send me and give me that slip or piece of paper so I can get past all the guards and I can get to Yusuf and I can talk to him and I can get what you need. Now, before I tell you exactly what happens between Yusuf and this man that he met after several years, I want to show you four things. Number one is that Yusuf, he doesn't ask for any money. He doesn't have a fee for interpreting dreams. Number two is when he does it, he actually interprets the whole dream. On top of interpreting the dream, he gives them a plan of action to get out of the future difficulties or economic difficulties that Egypt will face. And then the fourth thing that Yusuf does is that he teaches the king and this man and all the other people the sunnah of Allah. What is the sunnah of Allah? The sunnah or the way of Allah is فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا, that indeed with every hardship comes ease, and with every hardship comes ease. So number one, Yusuf, he does things for free. He doesn't ask for money. Yusuf, he interprets the whole thing. Yusuf, he gives a plan of action for the nation of Egypt. And Yusuf teaches them the sunnah of Allah, that indeed with every hardship comes ease. He does these four things. And so now, this man goes to the prison. He goes to see Yusuf after several years. And the first thing he says is, Yusufu ayyuha siddiq. O Yusuf, the trustworthy one. O Yusuf, the righteous one. O Yusuf, the honest one. Now, imagine you tell somebody that, hey, I want you to go plead my case. I want you to go stand up and fight for me when you get out. And then that person forgets. How angry would you be? How mad would you be? But yet Yusuf is not mad at all. He doesn't scold this person. He doesn't say, remember I told you to talk to the king about my situation. Why didn't you do that? Why are you here trying to just get a favor from me now after so many years? He doesn't do any of that. Yusuf doesn't scold him. He doesn't scream at him. In fact, he lets him speak. Why? Because Yusuf's akhlaq, or his character, was good. Sadiqan fi af'ali, he was righteous in his actions. Wa aqwali, righteous in his speech. Wa sulukihi, in his behavior. Wa ta'birihi, and he was even honest when it came to interpreting dreams. And so, one of the reasons why we study all of these surahs and we study the lives of the prophets is so we see how me and you can be. The prophets, they lived their lives with ihsan, with excellency, with akhlaq, with character, with amana, with trustworthiness, with fahm, with understanding, with sidq, with trustworthiness, al-wa'i, with comprehension, al-sabr, with patience, al-tahammul, with forbearance, al-hilm, with patience. They did all of these different things. And so this man, he says, Yusuf ayyuha siddiq, oh Yusuf, my friend, oh Yusuf, the righteous one. Aftina, we need your help. We need you to give a fatwa. We need you to interpret something. And now watch how this man tells Yusuf about the king's dream. He tells Yusuf about the king's dream with the exact words that the king said. With the exact words. Why is it so important to say the exact words that the king said, or the exact things that the king saw in the dream? It's because if he used any other words, the interpretation could become different. And this is the same thing. Sometimes Muslims will come and ask questions to the Imam, and on purpose, they'll leave out details to their situation. But they don't really realize that if you leave out details to your situation, the diagnosis that you're going to get is going to be completely wrong. It's the same exact way when you go to a doctor. If you leave out details about your health and you're trying to get help, they might end up prescribing the wrong thing for you and it might affect you negatively. And so this man, he gives Yusuf the exact dream of the king with the exact same words. And he says, أفتنا في سبع بقرات سمان يأكلهن سبع عجاف. That Yusuf, tell us there are 7 cows that are fat, that are being eaten by 7 skinny cows. وسبع سنبلات, and 7 ears of wheat or corn that are green, that are being eaten by 7 dry corns or of wheat. لعلي أرجع إلى الناس لعلهم يعلمون. Perhaps I will return back to the people so that they will know, so that they will come to understand. What does this man want the people to understand? He wants the people to understand the interpretation of this dream. He wants people to understand the virtue and the status of Yusuf, the dream interpreter. He wants people to understand the akhlaq and the character of Yusuf, the knowledge of Yusuf, the status of Yusuf, so that perhaps it's sort of a mutual, benefit that this man will go and tell the king what the dream means, and Yusuf's honor and his chance to get out of the prison will also happen at the same time. And that's why he says, perhaps that if you tell me what this dream means, I can go back and help clear your name, essentially. Right? And so Yusuf, he says it to them. And before I tell you exactly what Yusuf says in the Quran, I'll tell you what it means in short. Number 1 is that these 7 fat cows, or these 7, pieces of vegetation that are really green, these represent 7 years of goodness, 7 years of food, 7 years of prosperity, 7 years of no hunger in Egypt. And then these skinny cows and these dry vegetation represents 7 years of drought and lack of food and hunger all across Egypt. And so Yusuf, he tells this person this, but not only does he do that, he gives them a plan in order to defeat these 7 years of drought. And so right here, Yusuf is sitting in prison, but yet he's running the affairs and he's managing the affairs and the future of all of Egypt while sitting in the prison. And this is a lesson for us. Sometimes you don't need to be in a position of power in order to change the world. Sometimes you can even do it while sitting in prison, right? And so you have an example of Malcolm X and many other great people that did the same exact thing. In fact, some of the greatest scholars wrote some of their greatest books while being in prison. And so Yusuf, he begins to interpret the dreams. And he says, تَزْرَعُونَ سَبْعَ سِنِينَ دَآبًا, that you all will harvest and enjoy and have vegetation and livestock for 7 years, and it will be continuous. فَمَا حَصَدْتُمْ فَذَرُوهَا فِي سُنْبُلِهِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا مِمَّا تَأْكُلُونَ. Whatever you take out and whatever you sow, leave most of it where it is, meaning store most of it, and eat a little bit of it. Eat a little bit of it. So number 1, he's interpreting the dream, and then he's telling them exactly what to do. Just eat a little bit of what you earn in these 7 good years. ثم يأتي من بعد ذلك سبع شداد. Then 7 years will come of extremeness, of drought, of hunger, of difficulty. 7 hard years. يأكلن ما قدمتم لهن إلا قليلا مما تحصنون, in which you will devour what you have laid in advance for them, meaning you will eat what you saved, except a little of that which you have stored, meaning still leave a little bit in the storage. So essentially he's telling them 7 years of ease, 7 years of hardship. Make sure in the 7 years of goodness that you save up for a rainy day, for a difficult time. And when the difficult time comes, eat and rejoice, but still at the same time continue to save. Now, this is the end of the dream. But yet Yusuf, he gives a bonus interpretation. He gives a bonus detail. What is the bonus detail? He says, ثُمَّ يَأْتِي مِنْ بَعْدِ ذَلِكَ عَامٌ. Then after these 14 years, right? These 14 years of the dream, there will come an extra year, meaning a 15th year. فِيهِ يُغَاثُ النَّاسِ, in which the people will have a lot of rain, abundant rain. وَفِيهِ يَعْصِرُونَ, and they will press wine and they will press oil. Why is he saying they're going to press wine and they're going to press oil? Because pressing wine and oil and having olive oil is a sign of richness. It's a sign of being wealthy, right? if you don't go to a vineyard, but if you ever go to a vineyard, you're going to see how expensive some of the bottles are, right? I'm not saying that I know all the details except that which I know from TV, right? But the idea is that this is what he's saying. So 7 years of difficulty, 7 years of goodness, 7 years of difficulty, and 1 year of abundant rain. Now, generally, when a person interprets a dream and they know that this is going to happen, the first thing that they do is that they worry about themselves. They're like, oh, 7 years of badness are going to come to Egypt. Maybe I need to get out of prison and worry about myself, because the first people that are not going to get fed during this difficult time are going to be the prisoners. But yet, Yusuf doesn't do that. He tells them the full interpretation of the dream. And in fact, when Yusuf gets out, the scholars mention that Yusuf only used to eat 1 meal a day. 1 meal a day, right? And even that 1 meal that he would eat, he would never eat to his full, right? He was always worried about other people. So this extra year was not in the king's dream. But why did Yusuf mention it? In order to teach them the sunnah of Allah, which is فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا, that indeed with hardship always comes ease. That you're going to have 7 years of difficulty, but right after that is going to be one of the best years of your lives. After the king heard this interpretation, he says, "I'tuni bihi," bring him here, bring him here, bring him to the castle. And so فَلَمَّا جَاءَ الرَّسُولُ, so the king, he sends a messenger, somebody to deliver the message, to say, hey, Yusuf, come to the castle, you should be free of prison. What does Yusuf say? He says, "Irji ila rabbik," go back to the king. I'm not getting out of prison yet. فَاسْأَلْهُ, go and ask the king, مَا بَالُ النِّسْوَةُ اللَّاتِي قَطَّعْنَ أَيْدِيَهُنَّ, ask the king about the affair of those women that when they saw me, they cut their fingers. Ask them what that was about. إِنَّ رَبِّي بِكَيْدِهِنَّ عَلِيمٌ, that indeed my Lord, meaning Allah, is well aware of their plot. Why is Yusuf doing all of this? Why is he talking about the past? Right now, he has an opportunity to get out of prison, but yet he's denying that opportunity and saying that go and ask about what happened in the past, about the women that cut their fingers when they saw me. The reason Yusuf does this is because Yusuf doesn't just want his freedom. He doesn't just want to leave prison, but he wants to leave prison in the state of being honorable, in a state of his honor coming back. And so some people, they value freedom more than honor, but a Muslim does the opposite. A Muslim values their honor before they value their freedom. He didn't want to be a criminal who was pardoned. He wanted to be an innocent man who was wronged and then let out. He wanted to come out Aziz in a state or a power. He wanted to come out in a position of power. And so he's saying, ask about what happened in the past. Ask about how I was falsely accused. Ask about how the wife of the Aziz tried to seduce me and how he sent me to prison based off of the word of his wife. But what's interesting is Yusuf, he doesn't say go and ask the wife of the Aziz. He says go and ask the woman of the community, right? He doesn't endanger her honor. He doesn't expose her. Even though she did something wrong, he doesn't expose the Aziz. Even though in reality they're the oppressors and he's the oppressed. He doesn't go for her honor. And so the king, he calls the women, the bourgeoisie, the rich ladies of the community, and he says, "Ma khatbukunna," like, what is this Yusuf saying? He's saying some stuff about you all. إِذْ رَاوَدْتُنَّ يُوسُفَ عَنْ نَفْسِهِ, that he's saying that I've heard that you all seduced him. And what do they say? حَاشَ لِلَّهِ, that we would never do such a thing. مَا عَلِمْنَا عَلَيْهِ مِنْ سُوءٍ, we've never known Yusuf to do anything bad, so why would we do anything bad towards him, right? And then out of all this conversation, the Aziz's wife is sitting in the room with the king as well, right? And the king is different from the Aziz. The Aziz is the minister. This is the Malik, right? Eventually her guilt gets her. And she says, Al-ana has al-haq, that now it's time to come clean. Now I got to confess. Ana rawattuhu, I'm the one that seduced him. وَإِنَّهُ لَمِنَ الصَّادِقِينَ, that Yusuf, he's actually a trustworthy person. Yusuf is actually a good person. He's not a bad person at all. At that point, her arrogance and her stubbornness was destroyed and her heart became free and she corrected her mistake. And at this point, the Quran says, ذَلِكَ لِيَعْلَمَ أَنِّي لَمْ أَخُنْهُ بِالْغَيْبِ وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَهْدِي كَيْدَ الْخَائِنِينَ. Now this ayah is a little bit difficult if you open this ayah's tafsir as well as its translation, you'll find two different translations, and both of them have complete opposite meanings. The first meaning, which this ayah means, is that Yusuf then said, I asked for you, O king, to inquire about the Aziz, to inquire about what happened, so that the Aziz would know, meaning the one that took care of me as a little kid, the minister, would know that I never did anything wrong in his absence. And verily Allah does not guide those that are the deceivers, or those that plot and try to do deception. So in one meaning, it's Yusuf saying all of this. The stronger opinion is that these are actually the words of the wife of the Aziz. What is she actually saying? She's saying that I never betrayed Yusuf. I never betrayed Yusuf once he was in prison. What does this mean? It means that originally, yes, I blamed Yusuf. I put the blame on Yusuf. I said that he seduced me. He's the one that did something wrong. But once he went to prison, I never stuck to the story. I never attacked Yusuf again once he was gone. وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَهْدِي كَيْدَ الْخَائِنِينَ. And I know now, after years of regret of Yusuf being in prison, that Allah does not guide the plot of those that try to deceive other people. And this is the stronger interpretation. Why is the stronger interpretation? Because the previous ayah, who's talking? It's the wife of the Aziz who's talking. And so you go based off of the context. And then the ayah says, وَمَا أُبَرِّئُ نَفْسِي. That the woman is saying that I don't think of myself as free of blame. I don't think of myself as a good person. I don't think of myself as somebody that deserves to get away with this. But why did I do all of this? Inna nafsa. Indeed, my ego, my nafs, my lower self, my base self, la ammaratun bisu. It had ordered me to do something bad. So she's blaming the ego, the soul, the inside part of her. And then she says, Illa ma rahima rabbi. The only people that are able to push away their desires are those that Allah has mercy on, meaning those that Allah guides. And so some Muslims will say, well, I can control my desires. I have control. But the reality is no Muslim has control of their desires except that Muslim that Allah has mercy on. And in this situation, the one that Allah had mercy on was Yusuf. Yusuf was the one that was able to control. Inna Rabbi Ghafurur Rahim. Indeed, my Lord is the forgiving one and the merciful one. Right? Now, there's a few things to get from this. Number one is that at the end of all the difficulties in life, the greatest result or the winners at the end of the day are those that have taqwa. Yusuf came out on top. Number two is that a person's status and their honor as a Muslim comes before their freedom. And number three is that the nafs is something that you have to fight, and you have to not be like the wife of the Aziz. In the Quran, if you look at the word nafs, it has three types. The first one is an-nafsul ammara, which is the one that she talked about. The nafs, which is like, has control of you. The nafs that wants to destroy you. It has sultana, it has power over you. It wants to take away your humanity. It wants to take away your faith. It wants to take away your intellect and make you an animal. That's an-nafsul ammara. Then there's nafsul lawwama, which is the blaming nafs or the blaming ego. What is the blaming ego? لا أقسم بيوم القيامة ولا أقسم بالنفس اللوامة. Allah swears by this type of ego. This ego is that ego that when you do a mistake and when you do something wrong, it tells you, hey, why did you do that? It blames you and it makes you want to be a better person, right? Meaning this person, they can't sleep until they rectify it, until they go back to Allah and they go back to Iman. This type of nafs is good, right? Even though it makes mistakes sometimes. Then the third type of nafs is a nafsul mutma'inna, which is in Surah Al-Fajr, Ya ayyatuha nafsul mutma'inna, oh calm and beautiful and relaxed soul, irji ila rabbik, go back to your Lord, right? Radiyatan mardiyya, that you are pleased and we will make you pleased. Fadkhuli fi ibadi, that enter into Jannah, O my servant, wadkhuli jannati, and enter my heaven and my garden. This nafsul mutma'inna is that nafs which doesn't fall towards fitna. It doesn't fall towards desires. In fact, it stands strong towards this. And this nafsul mutma'inna is only for those people that are siddiqeen, those that are honest and sincere with God, and those that are prophets. Prophets have it naturally, the siddiqeen have to work on it. And so she's saying that it's my nafs. That's what made me do it. So now Yusuf, he comes out of prison with his head held high. The whole world knows he's innocent. And we're almost done, inshallah. And so the king again sends a representative, right? And the king, he tells Yusuf, or the representative tells Yusuf that the king did exactly what you wanted. He investigated your situation. The women have agreed that you are chaste, that you are innocent, and now the king wants to meet you again. And so وَقَالَ الْمَلِكُونِ ائْتُونِي بِهِ. The king again says, bring Yusuf to me this time again. أَسْتَخْلِصْهُ لِنَفْسِي. Not only should you bring him, I want to make him my close cabinet member. I want to make him for myself, khalis. He's not going to be anybody else's friend except my friend from now on, right? Because he's starting to realize the value of Yusuf. How does he realize the value of Yusuf? Number one, Yusuf interpreted the dream. Number two, Yusuf gave the solution to the situation that's going to happen in Egypt. And number three is when Yusuf was offered freedom, he chose his honor over freedom, and the king was impressed by that. But on top of that, the Quran says, فَلَمَّا كَلَّمَهُ, that when Yusuf finally came to the king and began to speak, the king became impressed by the speech of Yusuf. And when he became impressed, he said, إِنَّكَ الْيَوْمِ, that indeed you today, Yusuf, لَدَيْنَا مَكِينٌ أَمِينٌ, you will have such a high rank with us, and you are fully trusted by us. Nobody will ever doubt you again. Now, all of this, you might have forgotten. Where was Yusuf? He was kicked out of his house. He was left in a well. He was a child. He was sold as a slave. He was made a servant in the house of the minister. He was accused and sent to prison. All of this stuff. And now he's on top of the world. He has the favor of the king, right? فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. That indeed with hardship comes ease. The king realized that the speech of Yusuf is not just the speech of any person, but it's the speech of a knowledgeable, wise, and perhaps even a prophet. Speech that affects people. Now Yusuf, he's an opportunist. He's a smart man. He's young at this point. He says, اجعلني على خزائن الأرض. That if you have such faith in me, then make me in charge of the treasuries of Egypt. All the food, all the vegetation, all the weapons, everything, make me in charge of it. The treasury of Egypt is mine. Give it to me. But Yusuf, he doesn't say just give it to me. He gives a reason for why. But before I tell you the reason for why does Yusuf ask for the treasury in the first place? Because Yusuf knows something that many Muslims fail to know. That corruption in Muslim societies doesn't start with how people are at the masjid. It starts with how people are with money. You look at all the Muslim countries. What's the biggest problem? Politicians use the money of their nations unjustly. They have big houses. They travel to Europe. Their kids study in Oxford and Cambridge, but the rest of their country is starving. And so Yusuf understood that if I fix the corruption which is in the treasury, then there's a trickle-down effect. It will fix the rest of society. But the reality is that if the treasury is corrupt, there are bribes everywhere, there's bad character, there's killing, there's murder for wealth, there's adultery in the business place, then there's no point. You can't fix anything, no matter how many people you get into the masjid, right? And so Yusuf understood this. He said, let me be in charge of the treasury. Let me fix the economy first. Let me destroy corruption in the economy. Then after that, there will be a trickle-down effect, a domino effect, and the people will become better. Yusuf is not asking for his dunya. Yusuf is asking for the akhirah of the people, right? But Yusuf, he doesn't say, just give it to me. He gives reasons, right? He doesn't just say, give me the position. He says, Inni hafidhun alim, that I have two qualifications, two things that make me qualified for this job. Number one, hafidh, that I am hafidh. This word hafidh, it means ameen. I am trustworthy. I'm not going to do anything wrong. I'm not going to cheat anybody. I have no ulterior motives. There's no benefit for me to do any of this stuff. The second thing is alim. I have knowledge. I know how to do things, right? So what is Yusuf trying to teach them? Your character and your experience and merit matters more than who you're related to. If you go to the Muslim world, who gets the jobs? Oh, I gave it to my cousin. I gave it to my son. I gave it to this guy. I gave it to my relative. In reality, this is all wrong. You should give it to the people that actually deserve it. Those that have the education and those that are trustworthy, right? It's the same exact thing with Muslim organizations and businesses. You're running masajid, you're running schools, you're running hospitals. You need to be people that are not only trustworthy, but also have the knowledge for which you're running your things for. And the example of this comes in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, where a companion by the name of Abu Dhar, he says that one day I went to the Prophet ﷺ, najaytu Rasulullah, that I whispered to the Messenger of Allah, and I said, Amirni, or make me a ruler, make me a leader, give me some sort of governance, give me some sort of thing. Ala tastamiluni, don't use me to run some sort of thing. And at this, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Innaha amanatun wa khizyun wa nadamatun yawm al-qiyamah. That indeed leadership, indeed being a ruler is an amana, it's a trust. You're responsible for other people. Wa khizyun, and it can be a means of disgrace. Wa nadamatun, and it can be a means of regret on the day of judgment. Illa man akhadaha bihaqqiha, except for those people that fulfill the right of the positions that they're given in, وَأَدَّ الَّذِي عَلَيْهِ فِيهَا, and they complete the expectations. Meaning they're qualified and they actually do the work, right? And then the Prophet ﷺ says, Ya Abu Dhar, innaka da'if. Indeed, you're too weak to do this. So Abu Dhar, he wanted to do good. He wanted to be a leader. He wanted to be a governor. He wanted to help the Muslims. But yet the Prophet ﷺ is saying, that's not enough. Why is the Prophet ﷺ saying that? That it's not about how righteous or pious you are on the outside. It's about, do you have the skills and the knowledge alongside your piety as well? Abu Dhar was pious, but he was not in a position of knowledge in order to be a leader. And so the Quran, it says, وَكَذَلِكَ مَكَّنَّا لِيُوسُفَ فِي الْأَرْضِ, that this is the way that we gave full authority to Yusuf in the land. We put Yusuf on top of all of this. If you're in control of the treasury and you're in control of the money and you're in control of the food, especially when years of drought come, you end up becoming the most powerful person in the land. In fact, you're even more powerful than the king at that point. يَتَبَوَّأُ مِنْ حَيْثُ يَشَاءُ, to take possession therein when or where he likes. He's in control of everything. نُصِيبُ بِرَحْمَتِنَا مَنْ نَشَاءُ, we bestow this out of our mercy to whom we will. وَلَا نُضِيعُ أَجْرَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ, and we do not waste the reward of the righteous and people of excellence. Yusuf went through all those sacrifices. We're not going to waste all of his sacrifices. We're going to give him the reward for it. And this reward is talking about the reward of the dunya, meaning the reward of position, the reward of wealth, the reward of all this. Then Allah says, وَلَا أَجْرُ الْآخِرَةِ خَيْرٌ لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَكَانُوا يَتَّقُونَ. As for the reward of the akhirah, that is even better for those that believe and those that have taqwa. And so this is how Yusuf went from the prison to the palace. Inshallah, next time we'll speak about how Yusuf alayhi salam's brothers in the years of drought come to see Yusuf and come to seek help for him, and they don't even know that Yusuf is the man that they're standing in front of. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq and understanding, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to serve the Muslim community in the best way possible, and to increase our knowledge and to increase our trustworthiness. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك جزاكم الله خيرا. Inshallah, there's refreshments in the back. Please help yourself. If you see anybody sitting alone, try to go sit with them and don't make anyone feel left out, inshallah. جزاكم الله خير.